How are you?
We're good. I'm just gonna go close my door so it doesn't cause an echo.
We hear ya.
Yes,
How's everybody doing?
we're great. How you doing?
What could be bad?
You know what holiday it is in 5 hours?
What?
Not in 5 hours.
Shabbos.
It's now. Oh, Shabbos.
Shabbos is Friday.
Oh man, I really can't wait for Shabbos. Is that how you feel, Zach?
Yeah, but in 5 hours it's Tu B'Shvat. That's the best part about Shabbos. She says the best.
I love that you are your age and you wait for Shabbos the way I wait for Shabbos. Hey Noms, how are you?
I'm good.
They're called dates. They're delicious.
Daddy, what are you doing?
What am I doing?
Hello, Draysons, how are you?
Hi.
Hi.
The newly vaccinated Draysons, right?
Not yet.
Shot.
Half.
For sure.
Between the two of us, one full.
Okay.
Keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah. Wouldn't be the first time we got canceled.
The Draysons are big proponents. Miriam always texts me, think positive, text negative, and I've decided that that's my
Some days it's harder to think positive.
So that's why Tu B'Shvat is awesome, because it's all about seeing the positivity in the middle of the cold winter.
That's right. But I didn't get to buy a package of dates
Or Boxer.
or Boxer.
We have
We're
no,
going to go shopping
Sure.
for it.
We hate it.
and you guys have.
We're going to go shopping for dates.
Yes, I have to go shopping. You're right.
Jackie, not appropriate. Please stop.
Yeah.
You're gonna get something out of the meeting.
We bought them and we were supposed to have them.
Did you eat Boxer?
Yeah.
You're kidding.
When
They
we
still
were
have that?
They-
When I was a kid, that's what you got, Boxer.
Yeah, it was inedible then.
That's the only thing I
Still
knew
is.
about Tu B'Shvat. They gave you a Boxer
Yeah.
in school.
Dentists give out Boxer. That tells you
Use the
something.
same one every year.
Raisins are much better than Boxer.
Hannah, what?
Uh,
You want to take the other one? You want to take the date? Full disclosure, Cobrans, we're at the child pace, so we're just like whatever they're asking for, we're going for.
By the
So,
way,
That-
I
that's
want
right.
We're
that
good.
We often use a lot of
Wisest
chocolate at our Tu
strategy.
B'Shvat Seder.
It's
It
a
is-
fruit.
It's derived from the
Chocolate is a fruit.
ground.
Rockland.
fruit in the background and behind it looks kind of cool.
What, you want to see what's behind us? It is kind of cool. I'll show you. Let's see if I can show you.
They
Let me see. So there is some branches that are, they're quince, but they're supposed to be, they look a little bit like almond branches, and there's all different kinds of fruits.
Wow.
Oh,
beautiful.
wow, it's gorgeous.
And here's the
Beautiful
Shechianu.
oh
And
man,
this is a little, we usually put dried fruit on some skewers and stick it in with the plants. Let me see, I'm gonna actually try to reverse my camera.
Oh, this is beautiful. It's like both.
Here, I should be able to show you this way. There you go. Okay, so this is some new fruit. These are like our Shechianu fruits over here. Here's some stuff we started to plant.
This is what our kitchen always
Oh.
looks.
Yeah, our kitchen always looks like that. Okay, so we're leaving the messy parts out of the shot. This is something called a Buddha's hand, which we're gonna smell at the end. That thing, Jeff's pointing. Thank you, Vanna White. These are some branches, and the kids wrote some stuff that they are hopeful about, and we put them on the branches. Oh,
I recognize
go like
blueberries, thank
we
God.
usually try to play with our food on Tu B'Shvat. Let me see if I can show you that. Do you see those? That's a kind of fruit called rambutan. Tastes like a lychee.
Comes with eyes?
Well, we have
That's-
candy
that's the playing
eyes.
part.
Put some candy eyes in there. So, and then this is, that's a challah for the challah part of it. And the rest of this is,
thanks,
let's see, thanks, Dave. Okay, Jeff, you have to point. These are preserved
know what the
lemons
challah.
with which smells good. It smells at the end. There's some
They look like walnuts.
Zayat. And the rest of it is all kinds of, there's some rimon, some pomegranate, and then all kinds of other things that we kind of decorated and made. Okay, should we get started? So that's the up close tour.
This one with all the fingers, is that a variant of an esrog?
It is much cheaper than an esrog.
Well, especially this time of year, but
But it's very cool and it smells like one. It's called either a witch's hand or Buddha hand. This is called a money tree, actually. So even though we didn't win the lottery, we're hopeful. Okay, I'm going to turn the camera around.
Can we be Yote setting up for our Tu B'Shvat Seder through you?
Yep.
Even you can come collect the like 82 dates that aren't going to get eaten at the end of this evening.
82 days?
boy, that's old.
Okay. So we are going to start with our formal presentation, but it's a Seder, so we encourage participation and questions and things like that. Hold on, you have to share the screen?
Yeah, I'm going to, but I'm just getting
Okay,
back
hold
to
on.
my screen. Go for it. You can talk.
Okay, can everyone see that planning your Tu B'Shvat Seder?
Yes.
Okay. That slide is pretty self-explanatory. And what we're going to do is walk you through, we're not going to do the Seder with you now per se, because if you looked at that Haggadah that we emailed out a little before, it's a little long. And full confession, and Yaira and Naama and other Kobrins who are on this can attest to this, we have yet to make it all the way through our Haggadah of Leil Tu B'Shvat, but that's okay, because every year the Haggadah is a little different.
So
Which is nice about the difference between the Tu B'Shvat Seder and the Pesach Seder.
So we actually, this is this year's edited edition, which just got emailed around. If you want to open it, we usually also, full disclosure, do not do our Seder on a weeknight. We usually do it on the Shabbat closest. We find it hard to find time during the week. But what we thought we would do is we would talk about some of the ways we plan a Seder, and then you can take our Haggadah or anything else you find on the internet and go from there.
Mama, I don't trust the
We try to organize, every Seder has to be ordered, because that's what Seder means. And our Seder for Tu B'Shvat parallels in many ways the Seder for Pesach, in that it has 4 cups of wine. There are a lot of 4s. We don't have 4 sons and 4 questions. We have 4 different seasons that we think about, the 4 seasons of the year. And the Mekubalim talked about 4 different levels of Hashem's creation and his involvement in the world. I'm not such a Mekubal that I can explain this, and even if I could, I wouldn't be allowed to. But the 4 spheres that we focus on are Asiyah, creation, Yetzirah, formation, Briah is another way of saying creation, then Atzilut is actual activation. You'll see more of that as we go through it. And obviously 4 different types of fruits and foods. When you want to talk about the 4, because I can't remember.
Yeah, we talked. So you'll see also one of the organizing principles is whether the fruit has an inedible outside but an edible inside, like an orange, or has a edible outside but a pit inside that's inedible, like an apricot, right? Or is fully edible, like a strawberry. And then the last sphere is the spiritual, where you just smell and are fed through the smell. The other organizing principle that we often use are the Sheva Minim. So to us, thinking of the Sheva Minim really connects this for us, which is very connected to Eretz Yisrael. And depending on the year, that is that's the focus of our Seder. But the meal that we make involves every menu item is related to the Sheva Minim. So we have challah, and we have mushroom barley soup this year. And we have a chicken roast with lots of figs and dates around it. And we have a salad with pomegranate seeds and so on from there. So that's how that goes for us.
As Michelle said, this is a work in progress. We found a number of them online. Safaria has a number of excellent Tu B'Shvat shiurim and sources and things like that. Some of them are a little
More tutti frutti than
funkier
others.
than others, but if you're gonna be tutti frutti, this would be the holiday to do that. So, pick your poison. But we also like to look elsewhere to other texts, to secular texts, to songs, to the poem. I always like to talk about Joyce Kilmer because Joyce Kilmer probably got beat up every day in middle school. A boy named Joyce, but his poem about I've never seen. I think I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree. So one of the things we try to do in Tu B'Shvat is stop and not take all of this stuff for granted, whether it's a grape and the way a grape tastes, or the way a tree looks, or the way a pomegranate houses all of its seeds, each in their own little compartment. All of these things that we tend to just plow through in the normal, pace of our lives, we try to stop and say, wait a minute, look at the way Hashem has created that.
And also we really do try to, as with our real Seder, but even more so because you have so much more flexibility around your Tu B'Shvat Seder, have it match the interest, ages, stages of the participants. So we have found that even when our kids were very, very young, they were much more in tune with the idea of being good stewards of the environment and thinking about those questions than we were. And they still have really smart ways to educate us on that and to help us think about that. And we try to do lots of crafts. And so there's a planting craft that we have here. It's a great time to plant seeds. If you keep them inside, especially under LED lights, they'll be ready to go outside when the spring comes. We do lots of food and cooking, chocolate bark with Tu B'Shvat fruits in it. So really trying to think about the themes of, so this year, the theme that really I kept coming back to was being pushing yourself to find an optimistic moment or hope in the middle of what our president has called the dark winter, right? So that has really stuck with me. Just in terms of decorating, like it's a good time to make a family tree. You can put plants on the table. Jeff steps to the side. We have lots of plants and flowers, which I love anyway. I always try to find some branches. The kids wrote some things they're hopeful for on those branches. Really chocolate bark. You can take 2 clear plates and decorate between them and have one Seder plate, your Seder plate for an edible outside and another for an edible inside, and then have kids sort, or you yourself can sort. So these are all it's a great time to do something fun.
One of the nice things about, let me say it a different way. One of the challenges of the Seder on Pesach is keeping people going when the meal is all the way 3/4.
Do I get a chair?
Yeah, go ahead. No, I got it.
I need a chair.
So you want me to get it for you?
Yes.
We're just gonna
You said I'll get it.
Okay.
Hold on.
Schlepping all the way through Magid, knowing that the food is waiting all the way at the end. You don't have to do that on Tu B'Shvat. You can eat throughout, which is something that we do, and we like doing that very
Although,
much.
in all fairness, we've already started to eat because the Coburn family minhag, even at the Seder, is everyone eats full dinner at 6 o'clock
So we ate
before the
already.
Seder. So,
We ate already.
okay,
So-
they don't travel well on a hungry stomach, this gang.
That's true. As Michelle mentioned before, the Mekubalim talked about the different kinds of fruit. The fruit that has an inedible outside, like an orange or a watermelon or something, actually a watermelon has both inside and outside, but an orange or a banana, they symbolize that the tumah is still on the outside. And stage 2 of fruits in the Mekubalim's eyes was something that had the pit on the inside, an avocado or a peach or even apples. Because then the part that's inedible, the part that's tameh, is inside and now being processed and being purified. The ultimate form of a fruit is something like a blueberry or a fig, which you can eat every single part of. Nothing's wasted. And if we have a chance, we'll get to the Gemara, the Midrash at one point compared the Torah to a fig, because every single part of it is edible. Like Torah, there's nothing that you have to throw away. And then the ultimate level, like Michelle said, is things that you smell.
And the last piece, just as you think about planning it, which we mentioned before, is we rarely end up doing our Tu B'Shvat Seder on Tu B'Shvat because busy weeknights do not work for us to gather friends and family. No time now really works to gather friends. But we usually end up doing it the Friday night or the Shabbat after, when we find it's like a little bit easier to reflect and relax. So this is so you can go shopping tomorrow and Friday and still have your Tu B'Shvat Seder on Shabbat.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, we sent around before, Eliza sent around before, the text that we're working from. I don't know if you have that. I'm not going to share the screen because
It's too texty.
There's
You
a lot
won't
of
be able to
text.
read it.
So we're gonna run through that. If you haven't seen it, that link went out. Maybe we can share that link in the chat. I can't do that now because I don't have that.
it?
Oh, boy, but I didn't pay attention.
Okay.
But that is something that we shared and we can share again. But we're gonna
So
quickly.
really our idea was we would do sort of the highlights because
Yes.
we don't actually get through the whole thing here, but you have all the text, then you can kind of look and pick and choose to what interests you. We also, the same way we would ask our friends and our family every year to bring something with them. They don't have to bring food, we tell them, but they have to bring a song or a Dvar Torah or a poem or a book. We asked our kids to do that so you can have a sense of it. So you will hear from them as we sort of go through the way we've typically asked folks to bring something to the table. And David brought a song, which is fantastic.
So we start with the one Mishnah that talks about Tu B'Shvat, which is the first Mishnah in Masechet Rosh Hashanah. It talks about the 4 Roshei Hashanah, the 4 different dates throughout the year that were done for different legal halachic reasons. And Tu B'Shvat is machloket actually. Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, was it Rosh Chodesh Shvat or was it the 15th of Shvat? We go like Beit Hillel that it was Tu B'Shvat, and that is when the clock starts for bringing Maaser. You'd have to bring 1/10 of your produce, your tithing, to the Beit Hamikdash. You can share it.
Where's my phone?
So we quickly get through that first Mishnah. Be'echad b'shvat Rosh Hashanah le'ilan k'divrei Beit Shammai Beit Hillel omrim b'chamisha asar bo. So that's our main rabbinic text halachically for Tu B'Shvat.
I'm doing it.
Okay.
I'm doing it. Go ahead.
Okay. Then there's an idea, and I'm on the 3rd page now. If you have our Seder document in front of you, which Michelle is.
I'm going to send it,
She's
but it's
sending
got
the link.
emailed around. Just go ahead.
Okay. There's a beautiful mamar in Avot Rabbi Natan, where Rabbi Achayi ben Yoshia says that someone who, if you buy produce from the market, which is what we all do, it's like somebody who's a child whose mother has passed away and other mothers nurse that baby. But if you are someone who is eating the produce that you yourself produce, no pun intended, then it's like someone who's nursing their own mother. So we think about the food that we eat, the vegetables and the fruits that we eat, where do they come from? How do they get from, literally from farm to table? And what does it take to get them there and to not take them
And this
for
year,
granted?
when you really saw people move towards cooking more, we also saw like what it was like for the first time in the everything you want in the grocery store, that feeling of connectivity that people really yearn for, of being somehow connected to the food supply and the food and thinking about it. And also thinking about all the people who put themselves at risk to bring it. It actually feels much more meaningful this year for me than it has in the past.
We have 4 cups at our Seder. I'm on page 4 if you're following along. And the cups are all grape juice or wine, but they go in color from lighter to darker. Here's the first
So
cup.
this is our first cup is all white.
Is all
It's
white.
sparkling grape juice. But so you're going to go from white to deep red. So there's a lot of wine mixing. Those who are more wine connoisseurs among us might choose a rosé so they don't have to mix their wines. But the idea is you're going from the white of winter till the full bloom of like the deep autumnal red of the harvest. And so the 4 cups parallel those colors. And so we start with the cup of potential of the asiya, of really sort of the very groundedness and potential of the white winter.
Now, Amma Coburn, what's your poem about?
My poem is about being environmentally conscious.
Did we hear that, please?
Yes, I'm gonna send the words in the chat if anyone is interested.
Awesome.
Okay. This is a poem called The Earth's Call for Responsible Stewards by Elizabeth, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, her last name is Padillo Olison.
You froze.
It is calling for compassion. It is calling for responsible hands. It is and reverse.
Okay. Namchek, you want to check
Nams,
your
turn
Wi-Fi?
turn off your screen and just read without the video.
She's frozen.
Okay, she's out. Yeah,
Okay,
Ira,
we're
yeah,
coming.
Ira, do
We're
your,
coming. We'll come back. We'll come back to Naama. We'll come back to
We'll
that.
come back. Okay.
Okay, so another element of our Seder is that we always really try to think of questions. In our house, we often write questions on slips of paper and put them under people's plates and like tell them to lift up their plates, and there's their question. It works especially well. It works for kids and older people and everything else. So really, as we sort of are sitting here in the winter, in the white, and thinking about potential, we also begin to think about how eating connects us with God. So there's a great Mishnah in the Yerushalmi in Yuchasin, which says, Yishmeu anavim v'yismachu, and Atid Adam latet din v'cheshbon al shera'a minei negadim v'lo achal. So the Mishnah tells us that in the future, a person will have to explain themselves for every amazing thing they saw and didn't eat. And I love this Mishnah because it rethinks the way, right, as Americans, we think about food. It totally makes us rethink those things. But instead, it really focuses on the fact that the world is full of delicious food is actually an amazing bracha to take advantage of. And so the idea that you have to explain to God why you didn't partake of God's deliciousness is actually a great way to think of how food can connect us to God, like the miracle of tasting something delicious. I never trust people who don't like to eat, right? Because there's really something about that that's pretty amazing.
Ami, you want to try the poem again?
Sure, sorry.
No problem.
Okay, I'll start from the beginning.
Yep.
It is calling for compassion. It is calling for responsible hands. It is calling for stewards. Stewards to see and listen. Stewards to learn and act. Stewards to protect and love. The earth is crying, crying over destruction in her hills and mountains, fields, valleys, and air, seas, lakes, and rivers, plants, animals, and humans. The earth is calling men, women, youth, and children to do their share as stewards, responsible stewards of what has been entrusted from the beginning of time.
Thank you very much. Can we do it right now? Okay. Okay. So, we're gonna make the Hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen.
Thanks. The other trick is if you can save your fully red wine to be a better wine, then you can make a hatov hametiv at the end, right? Which is a really good trick. And also if you have a shechianu along the way. These are sort of like the two tricks we learned along the way. So we're going to move on to chita, right? And so we have challah for that. We are not going to wash now, but we actually have good old freshly baked Shabbos challah. In really thinking about how one elevates, again, it's like the relationship between God's world and humankind, right? So we always talk about, when we talk about challah, do you want to?
Well, I think I mentioned it before that there's a hierarchy. I don't know if I mentioned it here live or when we were talking about this before, but there's a hierarchy of brachot. And the highest level bracha that you can make on a food is hamotzi. Although hamotzi bread or even mizonot is slightly below that. So hamotzi is flour and water and eggs and whatever mixed together in a delicious way. And we take the ingredients that Hashem has given us. The bracha that you would make on wheat would be a borei pri ha'adama. If you were going to eat some, they used to eat dried kernels of wheat. The bracha that you'd make if you were really starving and you had to eat flour, out of the bag, that would be a shahakol. But when we add in the baker part, and I watched Michelle at 5:45 this morning, humble brag, baking this challah, we add our own elbow grease to the ingredients that Hashem has given us, and it takes it up a level in chashivut, even in terms of the bracha. The same thing is true with the wine. We make a bracha of borei pri hagafen on wine or even on grape juice, but if you were just eating grapes, you'd make a borei pri ha'et. So it goes up a notch because we, kiviyachol, as it were, we partnered together with God and we work together with Him in His creation.
So we would use this time and we encourage you to think about the ways you can and do partner with God. And for us, we think about the ways we could, but maybe aren't realizing our own potential in doing that. So for me, really thinking about, everyone talks about it's impossible to have a vaccine created in a short period of time. We know that the science to get that done was actually done in just over a long weekend, right? And so in some ways, I really think of the creation of the vaccine this year as, and the short time frame on which, although we're all very, very stressed out about getting our first and our second shots, and that is not to be minimized, the moment of stress that many of us are finding ourselves in. The fact that a vaccine came to market in such a short period of time really seems to me like a partnership between people and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is Rofeh Cholim. And so thinking about ways that we saw many in our own communities really partner with God to be Potech Yadecha, right? To help people who needed to eat. And thinking about the ways we are realizing our potential and also not realizing our potential in that.
No, that is correct. I think about the pasuk, which is the second paragraph of Breshit, and yet you're in solid, you're on deck. We have two responsibilities in the world. The pasuk is at the bottom of page 6, if you're following along. Vayikach Hashem Elokim et Adam. God took Adam and Chava. Vayanicheo began Eden. He plopped them in Gan Eden, and they had two jobs: le'avda u'lishamra. They had to work it, and they had to guard it. So, what does that mean for us today, in 2021, on Arlington Avenue, or 246th Street, or
Right.
239th
And I think
Street?
for us, and this is really what we see humankind is struggling with, like the question of a pipeline and everything else, is how do you balance that tension between Avda and Shamra, between exploiting the resources that exist in the world and protecting those resources, and sort of trying to find ways to do that is really one of the struggles of modern people, I think.
You're in solid. Is that a good segue, or not at all?
That's fine.
Okay,
We also have a poem
let's
from
hear it.
Emily Dickinson. You want me to read it?
We should alternate.
We're going to alternate lines.
Oh, great.
Nature is what we see.
The hill, the afternoon.
Squirrel, eclipse, the bumblebee.
Nay, nature is heaven.
Nature is what we hear.
The bobolink, the sea.
Thunder, the cricket.
Nay, nature is harmony.
Nature is what we know.
Yet have no art to say.
So impotent our wisdom is.
To her simplicity.
That's so beautiful, guys.
I think what this poem conveys is that with our artificial and human-made wisdom compared to the natural world and the natural wisdom, Dickinson thinks that the nature has its own kind of internal harmony, and our ways of conceiving it and talking about it never quite do it justice. So this is a poem about how all forms of poetry and human discourse can't live up to nature. This is a poem that describes how poems can't actually do justice to nature. So I find that ironic and funny, but we just can't help but to try to describe nature, even though we can't.
Go ahead.
That's amazing.
That's great.
All right, so now we move on, having done wine, and I'm gonna try to see if I can reverse my camera so I can show it to you. Let's see.
No.
Let's
Up arrow.
wait, guys, sorry, apologies. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now we're supposed to eat fruit next. So one way to do this is to start, if you don't have
mess
a,
up the display.
but we
so-
can't mess up this display. We moved our dining room table to here so that you can see what our dining room table looks like for Tu B'Shvat. So you are supposed to start in the order of the Sheva Minim. So Jeff, if you'll point, there's pomegranate seeds here. There's dates and figs here. And we have fig Newtons actually, because we also have some dried figs, but I
Some
couldn't
dates.
get fresh figs.
There's
Fresh
some
Direct
dates.
did not deliver. And we have olives over here, right? And so you're supposed to start with those unless you have a real preference. And we also have some Shechianu fruits over here. But my real preference, honestly, is this is a season when there's some amazing oranges. So we have some, I bought some like really good oranges, and there's a persimmon from Israel and some nuts from Israel as well. So now's the time when you're going to sort of take out your fruit and begin to eat the fruit that you can start with the Sheva Minim and then move on to the fruits that you love in order of preference.
Flip the camera around.
Okay. I'm going to flip this camera back around. Nope. Hang on one second. There we go.
Right, when Moshe was describing Eretz Israel to the Jewish people in the beginning of Sefer Dvarim, he says, Eretz Chitauso, Ra, the Geffen, the Te'ina, the Rimon, Eretz Zeit, Shemen, Udvash, those are the Sheva Minim, the dates and the olives and the grapes and the figs and the pomegranates and the wheat and the barley. What we do is,
There's good songs here. There's
Right.
the Sheva Minim song. There's the Tzadik Katamar Yifrach song that you can sing.
Eretz,
We love
Eretz
our
Zavat Chalav
Eretz
Udvash.
Zavat Chalav Udvash. Our favorite parak of Tehillim is Kof Chav Chad, Banim Kishti Leizitim Saviv L'Shulchanecha. So that's sort of what we do in this section a little bit. And we spend time thinking about our relationship to Eretz Yisrael, which many of us have not visited now for much longer than many of us are used to.
So we look on page 9, we have a
Livy says
song. Oh, wait.
Livy, do you want to do the Choni story?
Choni Hamagel was once walking and saw an old man planting a carob tree. Choni asked him, "How many years will it be until that tree bears fruit?" 70 years, answered the man. "Don't you know," called Choni, "that you will never live to eat that fruit?" "I found a world filled with carob trees," answered the man, "trees that my ancestors planted before me. Therefore, I plant it for my children."
There's an idea of continuity and of longevity when we think about these fruits also, especially these fruits of Eretz Yisrael. Dave Glazer, I know you have another song which we're going to get to, but on page 9 of our Haggadah is Hashkedia Porachat, which we're going to sing together, and we urge you all to join in. When anyone sings together on Zoom, it's a disaster because the way Zoom works, but we'll sing it together here, and please sing along with us, and we'll just do our best. Hashkedia Porachat v'shemes pazorachat Tziporim merosh kogad mivasrot et bohechad Tu b'shvat higia chag ha'ilanot Tu b'shvat higia chag ha'ilanot Ha'eretz mishavat higia et latat Kol echad yitapoet be'itim netzei chotzetz Tu b'shvat higia chag ha'ilanot Tu b'shvat higia chag ha'ilanot. And then there's the third stanza as well.
And
with
this
the
is a
terrible
good
translation
time
that I
to
found.
remember how much of the original Zionist dream related to trying to reconnect physically with the land. And that's where the song is coming out of. And the idea of really going back and connecting to God's world in a real way is something that I think resonates for many of us.
Okay. And
This is where we begin to eat the fruits that now, if you're going back to the order, you're going to eat the fruits that have the inedible shells or peels, like pistachios or oranges. So the edible portion is supposed to be perfection and purity, and the inedible are what Jeff said before, like things that are deficient in the world. And what we hope to do is throw off those shells and really focus on the inside. And then we pour the second cup. It's pale pink. I'll just take our white and I'm gonna add a little bit of red into that. And I'm gonna have to put some more white into it because it wasn't dark enough. This is the fun science experiment part of the Seder, is to try to get your color just right. So it's like supposed to be light pinkish.
the idea is that you can start to see potential turn into reality as the wine starts to darken.
Supposed to parallel spring, the beginning of spring. Can't wait for it.
Right, the inedible part in the middle of the fruit is now on the outside of the fruit. The tumah is being cast off, and there's that Shir HaAsavim that Michelle loves so much, that Naomi Shemer, which is based on this Ma'amar of Rabbi Nachman of Braslov, that every shepherd has his own melody, and every blade of grass, which is a little Walt Whitman, also has its own song. From the song of the grasses, the tune of the shepherd is made. How beautiful and pleasant to hear their song, and to pray among them, to serve Hashem with joy. Dave, you have a song?
Sure do.
Let's hear it.
I thought I'd do the boxer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just kidding. It was a joke. Boxer, carob.
I got it. It's a good one.
You can do the Matzo Pizza song too if we're.
That's not what I was going to do. I was going to do the garden song. inch by inch. I did this today for the little kids at school, and don't know if they liked it because I was on Zoom, but I did it anyway because I think it's a nice song for Tu B'Shvat. Here we go. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Pulling weeds and picking stones, we are made of dreams and bones. I feel the need to grow my own, 'cause it's close at hand. Grain for grain, sun and rain, I'll find my way in nature's chain. Tune my body and my brain to the music of the land. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. When your rows straight and long, temper them with prayer and song. Mother Earth will keep you strong if you give her love and care. And I'll grow watching hungrily from his perch in yonder tree. In my garden I'm as free as that feather thief up there. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down.
Awesome.
Thank you, David. I love that song, actually.
Yay. At the bottom of page 10, I had two questions, which I'm going to ask just rhetorically. What actions can I commit to this year that'll connect me more closely to the land? That could be the land of Israel, but that means the actual land, like the earth, like where things grow. And what step can I take, a real step, to preserve the world that Hashem gave us?
So we're going to ask everyone to take a minute and maybe put in the chat something you want to commit to this year, a little thing or a big thing, to think about a way to connect you more to nature or to steward nature a little bit better. I stopped composting over pandemic. I'm going to try to start again. That's some that's a good one.
More hikes. Playing sports outside.
Oh, that's a good one.
Don't connect with the land too much.
I would say this was the first year really that as a family, I'm embarrassed to say we ended up hiking more because we couldn't do things as well. Recycling, more hikes. Brad, you inspired us. The Herkmans inspired us to hike because they told us they were doing that more. So David Glazer wants Grandma Valerie to know that her plum cake connects him to the land. It's true. It's true. David Glazer winning another plum cake from Grandma Valerie with his comment.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something we really stopped to think about. Then we pour a third cup, which is slightly more dark red, as we're thinking about. Okay, there you go.
Okay.
As we're thinking about the summer now, moving towards the summer.
Mm-hmm. And Tali, Coburn, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Okay, so I'm going to be reading that poem that you referenced earlier, Abba. It's called Trees, apparently, by Mr. Joyce Kilmer. And he says in his poem, I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the earth's sweet flowing breast, a tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray, a tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair, upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with rain. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree.
That's beautiful, Sally.
Thank you very much. I think we take a lot of nature for granted. I think I said that before. So if Tu B'Shvat does nothing but makes us stop for a minute and say, wait a minute, look at that. That's amazing. So I had this week I'm able to, because my school's on vacation this week, I'm able to join TRM for Minyan every morning, and a big shout out to Brad Herkman and the Minyonaires who are there every day. But when I came home this morning, I noticed that sunrise. Sunrise has nothing to do with trees or fruits, but it's something that I wouldn't necessarily be able to stop and say, wow, look at that. So Tu B'Shvat is a moment to stop and say, wow, look at that, or taste that, or smell that, or appreciate that. And that's when the third cup we talked about is spring already, and we start eating fruits that are completely edible. Grapes.
So this is our favorite category because it's the berry category.
Yes. Amen. Yeah, well, it's okay. I'm not recording it. Oh. But the point is that the entire fruit is edible. There's no part that has to be thrown away. There's no pits and there's no peels. The entire thing is there. And then we move right on. Oh, look, inch by inch is right here in the Haggadah on page 11. And then we get to cup number 4. It's not like the Seder on Pesach where you have the long gaps. We go right into it. And cup number 4 is almost completely dark red. And that is
really meant
the harvest.
To all of the harvest and the idea that everything has come to fruition. We have moved from potential to actuality. And we ourselves are thinking this year about how to take our potential and move it to full actualization, especially when we're constrained in lots of different ways, in lots of different ways to do that. This is when we actually stop and smell things instead of just eating them to find other ways to appreciate them. So we have a Buddha's hand, which is a citron, a form of an esrog. Amen. And these are preserved lemons. That smells delicious. And these are delicious smelling preserved lemons, which you cook with, but you can't really eat. They have to soften in the liquid of cooking.
The etrog, as some of us may remember, is called Pre-Eitz Hadar. The Gemara says the etrog is the most spiritual of all the trees because the etrog smell doesn't only smell in the etrog, it smells in the bark of it. I've never seen an etrog tree, so I can't tell you this with full confidence, but I have been told that the etrog tree itself also smells like etrog. And it tastes like etrog. The bark, the wood of the tree also tastes like etrog. So that's the highest level, the closest to Hashem. Because when Hashem gave life to Adam and Chava, the Torah tells us that he breathed life in. And life is called neshama, and neshama and nishima, breathing, are two very closely related words. So that's as high as you can get in the levels, in the Kabbalistic levels.
And this goes back to we told you the original Seder, Tu B'Shvat Seder, actually was done by the Kabbalists, and the first Tu B'Shvat Haggadah was called Pre-Eitz Hadar. And it's really the idea of trying to achieve sort of these very holy, special levels through connecting to the world around us that God has made.
I don't know if there's anyone else on here that has a poem or a song or a thought they want to share with us, because this is a communal get-together. This is not a performance. Is there anybody else? Just jump right in. At this point, it was Suda we would bench, and we would bench with tremendous, sometimes, I'm not speaking for anyone except myself, sometimes we say Birkat HaMazon a little more rapidly than we should, and not reflecting on every single word and every single thought that's behind it. When we bench at the Tu B'Shvat Seder, which we're not going to do now because we didn't really eat, we try to really stop and think and have real kavanah and be grateful for the food that we ate.
So we're going to end with a bracha for all of you that actually also appears in Hamilton for all you Hamilton fans. That references the Sheva Minim. So the idea of the highest form of peace in Devorah is expressed in the time of Devorah as ish tachat yeno v'tachat gafno, right? That people are able to sit in peace in their vineyards and under their fig trees and this image, right? This image which George Washington himself quoted and came up in the inauguration recently, the image of peace of being able to sit outdoors with bounty, with plentiful food, nature, and enjoying it is really the bracha we have for all of us as a community. We've been so inspired over the years by the amazing citron esrog-like holiness of the TRM community, and how you've really actualized your most amazing potential. And our hope is that in a year that was filled with things that felt the opposite of peace, this Tu B'Shvat be the beginning of the optimism, the hope, of the light coming through, of the pink buds growing, and the beginning of the seeds of the almond tree growing in the darkness of the winter. May we all be
Amen.
sitting peacefully under our trees.
B'ezrat Hashem.
Happy Tu B'Shvat.
Happy Tu B'Shvat, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
Mishpachas
you. It was
Chevron.
terrific.
Lovely, a
Love-
lovely Seder. Thank you.
Really
so
terrific.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Enjoyed
Laila
it.
Tov.
Kol hakavod.
Anyone, if you want to come to the door, I'll give you a little zippy bag of
And
all of this.
we got a lot of fruit.
I want to print out your Seder. Can we print it from what you sent?
You should be able to. If there's a problem, just let us know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Laila Tov, thanks again. It was great.
Please send pictures of that table. I want to keep that for the future.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
We had our kids here for part of it and it was hectic, but we really enjoyed it.
They're adorable. It was so fun watching you dance with them.
It was the only way to keep her doing this.
It's like the real Seder. You gotta keep it going. We're like,
exactly. We really enjoyed it. So thank you.